This is a Forgotten History Special Report. On this episode, we will examine the possible responses Israel and perhaps other nations may take if Iran decides to become openly, actively, and even militarily involved in the current war between Israel, Hamas, and Hezbollah. Understand that this hypothetical scenario is mine only, and is not the official policy of Israel, United States, or any other nation. This scenario is not designed to instigate aggression towards Iran. It is simply an operational option that I feel personally would yield the best long-term results. How would or could Israel deal with Iran? What would be their strategic objectives and tactics? How effective would they be? Hello, I'm Colin Heaton, a veteran of the United States Army and Marine Corps, former history professor, book author, and welcome to this episode of Forgotten History. When I was in the Pentagon and Crystal City in Washington, D.C. during Operation Desert Shield, I was involved in a few small ways for the planning of Operation Desert Storm. Working with the various military branches, including intelligence, and working with other coalition nations, I was able to see how the overall strategy was being formulated against Iraq and Saddam Hussein. Many of those tactics with regard to the air war could also probably be used by Israel if it felt the need to strike Iran, only on a far more reaching surgical and intense scale. I cannot speak for the Israeli Defense Forces or their battle planning, but if I were Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu or the IDF commander, this is the plan that I would use. Determine who your allies are, who your enemies are, those who would assist and those who would be indifferent. Have secret discussions with the Arab Gulf states, who also fear a nuclear Iran, especially those who signed the Abraham Accord. Test American political will and ask if they would assist in two ways: providing satellite reconnaissance and air-to-air refueling. I will come back to that one. Locate and confirm the locations of all the primary and secondary targets, and once confirmed, set the timetable and hit the following targets in the following order, or even multiple targets at once in successive waves. 1. Iran's radar and air defense sites using electronic jamming and electronic countermeasures to blind them. 2. Bomb their airfields and destroy as many aircraft on the ground as possible, cratering their runways, hitting fuel and ordnance depots. Any aircraft that get airborne can be shot down. 3. Sink every ship in their harbors, creating a choke point, and bomb their harbors, making them useless. The ships would be in violation of the UN oil embargo anyway. Nothing to lose. 4. Hit all of their nuclear sites and missile launching sites with bunker buster bombs and scatter anti-personnel mines for hundreds of yards around those locations. Full napalm strikes would not hurt. 5. Destroy every oil well, refinery, and collection point. 6. Target all military vehicles and oil trucks, bombing the major highways and bridges, rendering them useless. All of this can be accomplished if one of two things happens. If the Israeli jets can get U.S. air-to-air refueling from KC-135 tankers, or if a nation like Saudi Arabia gives them landing and refueling rights. If Saudi Arabia did not give those rights, Israel would have to obtain permission from Jordan for overflight permissions, or they could hook east to Iraq, who would probably not give permission anyway. However, if neither nation agreed, Israel would probably launch the mission anyway. The problem is refueling, and if they could make an arrangement with Qatar or Bahrain for landing rights to refuel, then no problem, but that is not likely. The map shows the best route if Saudi Arabia agrees, avoiding Jordan if they did not come on board. Once refueled at number 1, the F-16s and F-15s would have the range to then strike most of the targets. These targets would have to be hit in waves using the previously numbered matrix. The other option is that the Israelis, if having no permissions, overfly Jordan or Iraq anyway and refuel from U.S. Air Force tankers en route and then again on the return leg. However, Jordan and even Iraq may come on board. Both nations have long-standing animosities with Iran, which is Muslim, but they are not Arabs. If a deal can be struck with those nations, bringing them into the petroleum collective, cutting out Russia, and supplying Europe from their end without serious competition from the USA, once we get back to common sense and energy dominance, they may go for it. What could be arranged if Saudi Arabia agreed would be to have Israeli jets land and not just refuel but also rearm, since the Royal Saudi Air Force also uses F-16 and F-15 types and the same ordnance. However, Kuwait may in fact provide a refueling point for incoming and outgoing aircraft or provide emergency landing for damaged aircraft, which could be discussed, used in conjunction with American air refueling tankers. Kuwait and Bahrain are not well disposed towards Iran and are user-friendly to the United States and Saudis, and both would financially benefit from an Iran unable to pump and move oil and gas. Then there is another option. Should Iran get directly involved, then that would justify U.S. involvement, and by situating an aircraft carrier task force with submarines in the Persian Gulf, the damage could be exponentially increased in a shorter amount of time. Cruise missiles from submarines and surface ships and long-range bombers could also augment the operation from their bases in Europe. As an established, proven sponsor of world terror, no declaration of war would be needed against Iran. Just hit and run. Iran would have no leg to stand on. Just recently, several Iranians were caught crossing the U.S. southern border, and 2 were documented terrorists. All parties would also benefit from having Iran reduced to third world status, begging for foreign aid. They were almost there under Trump until the current administration refused to enforce the embargoes and gave them billions of dollars and the fast track to a nuclear weapon. Iran does not have a very capable air defense system. Yes, they have surface-to-air missiles which can be jammed and hit by cruise missiles and strikes from jets. They have a small navy, but that becomes nullified when the ports and ships are sunk. But what about the Iranian army? They would be powerless, and with many of them killed or wounded in airstrikes, that may give the population the ability to finally rise up and overthrow that despotic regime. What would the fallout be? Well, from the United Nations, they would lose their minds. But then again, that parasitic, ineffectual, and basically worthless organization has no teeth without the US and Great Britain. This is the same UN that put Iran in charge of the Human Rights Council in May of 2023. Yes, the same country that supports Hamas, Hezbollah, ISIS, Taliban, gave weapons to kill Americans and coalition forces in Iraq and Afghanistan, and sold weapons to Russia to use in Ukraine. The same Iran that executes its own citizens who voice political dissent, hang young girls from cranes for reporting rapes, arrests and kills women who do not dress according to Islamic law, allows honor killings, as if there ever was such a thing, takes foreigners hostage on fake charges of espionage and holds them for ransom, executes homosexuals, and indoctrinates children to be anti-Western killers. So the UN has no moral credibility. They are irrelevant. Russia would take serious notice as their key neighboring ally would be begging Putin for food. China would take notice because America has allies in the Pacific Rim and Southeast Asia. Iran has consistently violated the Iran nuclear deal, which was why President Trump pulled out of it, and Joe Biden, in an even less lucid moment, wants to jump right back in. If the Israelis managed to pull this off, Iran would be broke in 3 months, starving in 6 months, and possibly have a regime change within a year. A weak Iran may even find itself invaded by Iraq, who would love to claim those dormant oil wells, and the population of Iran would probably see them as liberators. Russia is too busy trying to stay alive in Ukraine to be effective. Iran's allies in Afghanistan do not want a revisiting of Allied air power, so they would just keep their mouths shut. The only other groups that would be doing business in Iran may be the Red Crescent and possibly the Red Cross. No one else would want to touch it. All in all, hitting Iran in a coordinated, multi-phased, and multi-state operation would be one of the best moves humankind could ever make to the betterment of the world. Iran, like most tyrannical governments, understands power. I say, give them a first-class display of power. How do you feel about this plan, assessment, and hypothetical operational planning? Do you feel that it has merit? If not, why? If so, why? We want your opinions, possibly even suggestions, and we appreciate your viewership. Thank you for watching Forgotten History. Please click like, subscribe, and share. Send us comments and show ideas, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. Until next time.